Welcome back to SportsLine, everybody, here on News Channel 5 Plus. As promised, we are joined now by the beat writer of the Tennessee Titans for the Tennessean newspaper, our good buddy Jason Wolf. Wolf, man, how are you, man? Thanks for jumping on tonight.
I'm doing all right, JB. How are you?
Good, buddy. Good. Yeah, training camp, hard to believe it's coming to a close as the traditional form of it, tomorrow being the last training camp practice. It's funny, Wolf, I got to start with this. You know, I'm walking into the practice facility this morning, and the one security guard is just giving it to me about Alex Tanney and how terrible he was Saturday night against the Jets. And, you know, he missed receivers. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. And the poor guy was sacked 7 times. I know it's not all the offensive line's fault, but when you're taking a beating like that, you tend to be a little gun shy. I was just happy to see him like walk out of that game and not leave in a body bag. How about you?
Oh, it was brutal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much blame that you can put on him. I mean, obviously there's plenty to spread around. You know, we were discussing this afternoon that if it had been Matt Castle back there, he would have been murdered. And he is a far more mobile quarterback than Castle is. And yet at the same time, you know, we discussed that Castle may very well have gotten the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker than Tanney did on a few of those instances. But, I mean, there's no doubt about it. There were some plays where he just didn't have a shot at all.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, Jason, the joint practice number 1 today between the Titans and the Carolina Panthers. A good day to get some good work in. Had a little bit of a rain delay, but they got things going a little after 10 a.m. this morning. It was a nice, hot, muggy day here in Middle Tennessee. Both teams are used to that, being teams based in the Southeast this time of year. Overall, what did you think and what did you see?
Oh, my goodness, it was a sauna out there.
Air you can wear, I like to call it.
When I wasn't wiping the sweat out of my eyes. You know, what impressed me most today was the way that a handful of Titans receivers won contested balls along the perimeter of the field. I think Eric Decker had the best catch of the day in that regard, where he just absolutely ripped the ball away from Captain Munnerlyn. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Decker's a much bigger guy. But it's nice to see, that type of physicality going against a player wearing a different colored jersey. You know, it's one thing to practice against, Logan Ryan all the time, Dory Jackson, LaShawn Sims, the same cast of characters as Rashard Matthews told me today. It's another thing when you finally get somebody else out there to give you a different look, and then you get to beat that person. I asked Marcus Mariota about it this afternoon. It's like, hey, you must have noticed that Decker came down with that pass today. Something that you're used to seeing over the last couple of years, right? Mm. And Marcus, being, a pretty mild-mannered guy, to say the least, always likes to, take the blame himself, even when there's no possible way that it can be his fault. He actually said something that struck me a little bit. He said, we've had guys who have made plays off and on, but to be able to see this level of consistency on the outside, that's something new here. And while that's not slamming his, former teammates, he is speaking a truth there, that the Titans have significantly upgraded wide receiver, and even with Corey Davis, the 5th overall pick, still sidelined by the hamstring injury. Tajay Sharp, of course, is still out, with the foot injury after he started 10 games last season. The Titans are still better off at wide receiver with Eric Decker. Taywan Taylor, had a couple of great catches today. That was the thing that struck me the most is, just seeing those receivers win those contested passes down the sidelines. I think that bodes well for the Titans this season.
Jason Wolf of the Tennessean is our guest here on SportsLine. Now, Jason, I don't profess to be an expert on interior line play, but I was told by some people today that the Carolina defensive line was getting the better of the Titans' offensive line. Did you see that? Would you agree with that assessment? What did you see out there?
Well, I'm not going to profess to be an expert on interior line play myself, but it was clear that the Panthers were able to make some plays today. I mean, we all saw what the New York Jets were able to do against the Titans starters in the first preseason game on Saturday. And yes, it is early, but even Mike Mularkey had mentioned after that game how surprised he was because, again, the Titans returned all 5 starters along the offensive line from last season. And this is an offensive line that was ranked among the best performing lines in the NFL by a number of outlets, including Pro Football, the analytics site Pro Football Focus. DeMarco Murray was tops in the AFC in rushing yards, third in the NFL. I mean, it was night and day in terms of sacks from 2015 to 2016. And so, the line's poor protection early in training camp and early in the preseason is really pretty surprising, and it's something that needs to be straightened out. Obviously, they still have some time to work on it, particularly if Mariota's only going to get a series or two and you stick Tanny back there to get killed. But it's not something that you want to see continue for very long.
No question about it. Jason, how about the Titans' defense against Carolina's offense? Obviously, Cam Newton did not take part in any contact drills today, which was kind of a bummer for me. I'm a huge Cam fan. But what did you see from the defense today?
I don't know, man. You better be careful who you say that to around here.
Oh, I know. Trust me, I know. I took a beating a couple of years ago during that game, kind of defending Cam's antics, and I got crushed on Twitter, so I understand.
He was dancing in the end zone?
Yep.
I don't mean to go down this rabbit hole, but how did you defend that?
It's funny because I basically said, look, 2 things. Number one, he's not out to make anybody look bad. That's just what he does. He's out there having fun. And number 2 was, if you don't like him dancing in your end zone, stop him. And I took a bath. Wolfie, you and I have had many conversations on and off the record about some of the reactions we get to some of the things we broadcast and write. I got destroyed.
Yeah, I wasn't going to blow anybody up who felt that way. I remember thinking that it was sort of distasteful just because it was in the final minutes of a game.
Yeah.
The Panthers had, in hand anyway, and it was just kind of rubbing some salt in the wound at that point in time.
Fair enough. That's a fair point.
Celebration. But, obviously today you would have liked to have seen Cam out there. He would have given the Titans a far better look than, say, Joe Webb did. I'm not sure how much you can take from that experience, from the defense's perspective. Now, obviously, there's more to the Carolina offense than just Cam Newton, but he is the superstar quarterback. You would have liked for the Titans to get a look at him. I don't think this hasn't been, confirmed by the Panthers yet, but I'd be surprised if he did much more tomorrow than what he did today. He tossed the ball around a little bit in individual work. He didn't participate in any team drills, anything along those lines. And frankly, I'll be surprised if the Panthers trot him out there for the preseason game on Saturday.
Jason Wolf is our guest. Let's talk about the Titans quarterback, Marcus Mariota. I asked him today specifically, all this talk about the leg and coming back from the leg. I mean, this guy's had a full training camp, 9 plays of a preseason game. He seems to be fine. He looks fine. He's moving fine. I asked him dead on. I said, is it time to put the whole leg thing to bed? And he just kind of looked at me and said, yeah, I would say so. Yeah, he did. He kind of chuckled about it. I really think, you were there when all that was going on. I really think this whole issue about, will Marcus Mariota be healthy? Is the leg healed? I think that's done and put to bed, don't you?
For me, it was all about seeing him take a hit game and then get back up. Because we've seen him over the last several weeks. He's throwing the ball pretty well. He's running a lot better than I would have thought. He looks to be as close to 100% as you could probably get heading into a second preseason game, knowing that he spent the entire offseason rehabbing. I'm always a little bit surprised when I see him juke a defender, even though he's clearly he's wearing the red practice jersey. He's not going to get hit. I'm pretty sure anyone lays a hand on him, they might get beheaded as well as cut.
That's right. Amy Adams Strunk might be the one doing the beheading, by the way.
There's not a whole lot I think he needs to be worried about in terms of contact. And so for me, in the Jets game, I really wanted to see him take a shot and, kind of, brush it off. And he was able to do that in the first couple of drives. He only took those 2 drives. I think it was the second drive. He took a sack. You don't ever want to see him get hit. And again, I wasn't looking for one of those teeth-rattling blows.
Right, not the type of hits that Alex Tanney was taking, right?
Right. No, those were just brutal. But that, to me, was the final step. Now, of course, Saturday, you want to see him pilot this offense, to some points. You want to see them get into the end zone. He wasn't able to do that in 2 drives against the Jets. There are clearly some more benchmarks that he needs to hit along the way, get through a complete game, win a game, get in the end zone, all that good stuff.
Right.
I mean, if you're a Titans fan, this is probably the best that you could have possibly have hoped for on Christmas Eve when they were carting him off the field in Jacksonville.
Talking with Jason Wolf of the Tennessean. Got a couple more things I want to get to with you, Jason. DeMarco Murray basically missed all last week with a tender hamstring. He's been back. He returned to practice on Monday. Today he was pretty much a full go. Looked awfully good from what I saw. What'd you see?
The first play of team drills, Mariota handed off to Murray, and that line, we've blasted them a little bit for their protection issues, and deservedly so, but they opened a yawning hole, and he ran for 15, 20 yards before anybody touched him. That was on the very first play of team drills today, and, he's looking good. I was beginning to question a little bit about what DeMarco Murray was doing, being sidelined for the better part of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Actually, you go back and, I've read some articles about the one season in Philadelphia when, teammates kind of thought that he was taking it easy at times. There was one instance where the Eagles safety, DeMarco Murray was taking an off day, and, it's a hot practice day, and one of the Eagles players comes over and brings him a folding chair to sit on. With reporters and said, I just wanted him to have a nice, comfy place to sit.
That's so Philly, by the way, and you know better than I do.
Yeah. And so I hesitate to say, I don't want to say that the guy was dogging it in any way. Obviously, with a hamstring injury, they can linger. Any type of skill position players, wide outs, running backs, man, you want to make sure that's 100% before you come back, and then probably wait another couple of days just in case it's not.
Sure.
Because those types of injuries can linger. At the same time, boy, we got a good look at Derrick Henry over the last couple of weeks, and that guy looks like a star in the making. If the Titans were to lose DeMarco Murray for any length of time, I don't know that there's a better backup running back in the NFL than Derrick Henry. So, they're in really great shape. But DeMarco's looking good now. He looked good today. He looked pretty solid when he first got back on the field Monday night during the practice in the Dome, which I was out of town for that, handling some personal business. But, the Titans are going to be better off with DeMarco Murray than without him, even though they do have Derrick Henry waiting in the wings. And it's good to see him, that veteran presence, that guy, he's still got a lot of tread left on the tires, it looks like.
We'll get you out of here with this, Jason. Again, we appreciate you being on. Jason Wolf of the Tennessean. You can follow him on Twitter at Jason Wolf. Does a great job covering the Tennessee Titans for the Tennessean. Jon Burton, the rookie linebacker out of UCLA. This guy is really turning some heads at training camp. I thought he had a solid game Saturday night against the Jets. And they brought this guy in. He's a smaller linebacker, but he's really good in space. He can turn and run with tight ends and slot receivers. And he's really shown himself to have a pretty good camp so far. Wouldn't you agree?
I'm glad you mentioned Jon, because I was about to bring him up a few questions ago when you were asking me about the Titans' defense today. For a fifth-round pick, the Titans look like they're about to get some return on their investment with this guy. He did pretty well for himself against the Jets. I talked to him today, and he told me all about pulling on a game jersey for the first time and running out of the tunnel, in New York, North Jersey. seeing an opponent for the first time, getting out there, making, calming those butterflies, making some plays. He had an interception out there today. He's been running with the starters some this week. It's a guy who I think is going to, if he hasn't already, earn a role on this team and make a significant impact at times. The Titans have really struggled in recent years with linebackers covering guys over the middle of the field, particularly tight ends. And
you weren't at the Dante Rosario game in San Diego a few years ago. I'm sure you've heard about that one by now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an area that they've struggled with for some time now. And, he's going to earn his role as a nickel linebacker on this team. He's already getting work with the starters. When he was recruited to UCLA, they brought him in as a safety. So this is a guy with cover skills, and he is a little bit undersized for the position, but we saw him make a stop. We saw him make a tackle for loss on Saturday night against the Jets, so he's been able to sniff out at least one play so far behind the line of scrimmage. And so if he can really contribute not only in coverage but as a run stopper, he's a guy who's going to earn some playing time for himself this season and for seasons to come potentially.
All right, Jason, you kind of laid it out throughout our discussion here, but what specifically do you want to see from the Titans this Saturday in preseason game number 2 against Carolina?
The starters need to get in the end zone.
Yeah.
You want to see the starters score some points, and the offensive line really needs to do a better job of protection. And I know Mike Mularkey has talked about, it's not all on the offensive lines. The running backs, fullback missed some blocking assignments. The tight ends were partially to blame at times. There's always a different breakdown. And even people who think they know what they're talking about, when they call out a guy, it's like, this is where the breakdown was. If you don't know the blocking schemes.
True.
And the players will say this themselves. If you don't know the blocking schemes, you really don't know whose fault it was at any given time. And so, no, it's not entirely on the offensive line. But that said, when you give up 8 sacks, I mean, there's a problem there. That's something that the offensive line really needs to take ownership of and correct, because you can't tell me there are 8 sacks and that's all on the running backs. I mean, if that's the case, then Mularkey's got to stop calling those protection schemes because they're not working.
Right.
I mean, that O-line is supposed to be among the best, among the better O-lines in the league. They had so much success last offseason. We hear about all this great camaraderie, how during the offseason they all stuck together. We saw them chugging beers together at Predators games. Well, guess what? It's football season, and it's time to get back to it. We can't have 8 sacks in a game. I mean, that's outrageous. And so what I want to see the first-team offense score against the first-team defense. I want to see better protection. And again, it's the second preseason game, so a lot of it is about depth. Let's look for Jayon Brown to build on what he accomplished. I'd like to see Kevin Dodd, who got a bunch of playing time in the first game, continue to get significant playing time, because you want to make sure that this guy can hold up.
Sure.
I would like to see a Dory Jackson make some noise in the return game. He's done it a couple of practices. He was pretty impressive at the intra-squad scrimmage they had at Nissan Stadium a week and a half ago, but he really didn't do a whole lot against the Jets, so I'd like to see him make some noise in the return game as well. Eric Decker, you'd like to see him put together something in the game. I think his only contribution on Saturday against the Jets was an offensive pass interference that negated the first down throw to Delaney Walker. So you want to see them begin to start to put things together, because it's a pretty quick turnaround to the third preseason game, and that's the one where the starters are going to get the bulk of the work. And then after that, I mean, we're cruising through to the regular season. The fourth game is just in.
A bunch of guys will be bagging groceries in a week or so, right?
Right. The starters will get a series at best. So, I mean, they've got this game against the Panthers, and then they've got a game against the Bears to really get their act together before these start to count.
Jason, thank you so much, man. We appreciate the time and the insight. Have a great night, and we'll be calling on you again real soon, I'm sure.
Always a pleasure, man. Give me a shout whenever.
All right. The great Jason Wolf of the Tennessean joining us. We are way late for a break, I'm sure, so we're going to take that break. You want to react to what Jason had to say, give us a call, 737-7767. We'll hear more from the Titans and the Panthers when we come back here on SportsLine.